In this lesson, we will continue on our first day as a junior cybersecurity analyst. This is where practice meets theory. You've undergone training, watched videos, read books, etc. Now you can put into practice what you have learned. Let's get right into it. Welcome back. Before we dive into the content, I want to give you a heads up that there were spoilers ahead. This is a solutions video. The assumption is that you have already completed the ADX and KC7 Getting Started videos in Section 2 Aliens Challenge. You can find these videos and instructions in the show notes below. We don't want to rob you of the experience of learning and gaming on your own. This video is designed to provide the context to the answers and bring life to the data, techniques, tactics, and procedures. So please be sure you have completed Section 2 Aliens module before proceeding. To get started, grab the companion guide from the link in the show notes below. Also, if you like this content, please make sure to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any new videos. There are 30 questions we will go over today. As you may recall, we work as a junior cybersecurity analyst for the Balloons Over Iowa company. We're part of a team that monitors, analyzes, and responds to security issues. Our boss has handed us a list of questions that need to be answered. By the end of your first day on the job, you should be able to use the Azure Data Explorer, use multiple data sets to answer targeted questions, investigate cyber activity and logs including email, web traffic, and server logs, use multiple techniques to track the activities of APTs, also known as Advanced Persistent Threats, use third-party datasets to discover things about your attackers, and make recommendations on what actions a company can take to protect themselves. With the stage set, let's get started with the first question from our list. And we're back, and we're going to get right into it here. So we have our companion guide on the left side here. We also have the query data from ADX, Azure Data Explorer, on this side here. So let's get right into work. So first and foremost, as described in the introduction, you want to make sure that you are familiar with the tutorial from the ADX Getting Started guide. There's a YouTube clip link here in the show notes. Also KC7, that you understand the KQL or the custom query language. And also, spoiler alert, Section 2 Aliens should have been completed. This is just going to provide some context. And that said, the query data for Balloons Over Iowa is over here. And the way I have my screen set up, I want to give you a little bit more real estate. So rather than rack and stack them this way here, I'm going to layer them like cards, like a deck of cards, and we can come back and take a look at them as we need to. Okay, so that's out of the way. The other thing is we want to continue showing some acknowledgments in the learner contract and acknowledge the creators of the KC7 Cyber platform. You can follow them at KC7 Cyber at X, formerly known as Twitter. And I also want to let you know that this is not a spectator sport. I'm not expecting you to sit on the sidelines and watch me go through this here. The idea here is that you have either done this or at some point you will go over and get your hands dirty, or sometimes, as I like to say, is get some dirt under your fingernails so that way you can internalize this experience. So here we are. Let's go down and tackle our first question, which is, which email address sent a message containing the domain invasion.xyz? So I'm going to save myself a little bit of trouble. I'm going to do some copy and pasting to make life easier for us here. So I'm going to copy that into buffer, and I'm going into the ADX side of the house. Now on the ADX side of the house, it says we want to know what is our question here, which is what email address had the domain. So we're probably going to use the email table. So in this case here, I'm going to come off into the workspace area, bring the results up a little higher so that way we can see this and make it easier. And it's probably going to be the email tab. So I'm going to double click the email tab, and I'm just going to do a quick take for, so we can see what are some of our options here, and subject is what I'm looking for. So I want to see which one has that subject. Now I'm going to cheat a little bit, and you saw me do this before. I'm going to do a comment, which means that if I do a double /, that comments the line, which means that it's not being executed. This is good and bad. This is where we can write notes and comments, but also sometimes you may forget in troubleshooting. I'm going to use the search command. So I do pipe search, and I'm going to put in the invasion.x, and I'm going to look across the whole table to see what happens here, and quickly we can answer that question. So once the question comes up again, it says what email address sent the message containing the domain invasion.xyz? Well, it looks like it was this user here. TETHYS pocketbook.xyz sent that, and this is the full link. So now we have question number 1 answered, and now let's go to question number 2. How many users received email with the links to the domain invasion.xyz? Okay, so when we see how many, this gives us an indication that we're looking at the count command, and now we know that the sender is this user here. So let's go ahead and do copy, and I'm going to rem this out too. I may need to use this or remark it out, and I'm going to say pipe where take the autocomplete. See, it's hinting there. Hit tab, and I'm going to say where sender open clip open quote, and I have a mistake here. So where sender, and I need obviously an operator here, and it says okay. So we have a couple of users here. Now it shows me that this was the sender. Now I want to make sure that we have distinct numbers, as we have mentioned before. It sent a couple. The question is more specific. How many users received email with the links in the domain to the domain invasion? So I'm going to look at this one here. It says invasion. I'm going to also say where a link has open quote the invasion.xyz. So let's go ahead and type that in as well. And just give me a moment. Okay, perfect. And let's see what we get so far with that. Good. We see 2 records. Now, just to do this from a programmatic perspective, I'm going to run the count command, and it's going to say 2 records, and that is correct. So to answer this question here, where how many users received email with the links to the domain invasion XYZ, we want to have a unique sender. We know this was from question number 1, and where the link has invasion.xyz, and anytime we see count, we got the count command. So we're looking good with question 2. Let's go ahead with question 3. What was the subject of the email sent in question number 1, which is this one here? What email address? So this is where we start to repurpose some of our work. So I can make things easier here, comment out some of the comments here or the executions here, and I'm going to uncomment or make this one active again, and I'll probably comment this one here, and we're going to run it. And now we want to know what was the subject of this line here. So I'm going to double click this here so that way we can get a little bit more real estate on the columns. And this is the subject. Urgent query about Earth's atmospheric composition. I copy that, and that is our answer here. What was the subject in email 1? We could probably build this as we want to here. So here's what I'll do here just to make an answer key going forward is I'm going to uncheck these so we can see our addresses here. I'm going to edit and paste. You guys probably saw this already, and I'm just going to give this a different color here. So let's just give us a little bit of space here so we can see that, and let's go with a dark green so we can see our answers in dark green. We know this one was -2. I'm going to set this one up as a -2 as well. We'll set that up over here, and the email address for this user here, because we may have to repurpose some of these answers, and I'm going to set them up this way here, and I'll just go ahead and paste without formatting and just go ahead and put that color in there, the dark green, and that's good. Our greens don't match, but that's okay. We can fix that a little bit later. Okay, so we have our answers so far, and we'll check these off later. We don't want to close this out without having access to the answers. Okay, so our next question is, who received the email in 1? Provide the email address of any of them. What file name was sent as a link in the email? Okay, so we know this is the sender, TETHYS, and the reply to, and we see some recipients here. So let's double click this column here and take a better look. And we see we have Mandy Peters and Eugene Lawrence. So if we wanted to answer the question, who received the email in question number 1, which is who sent it from here, we have Mandy Peters and Eugene Lawrence. So I'm going to copy both of these. We're going to set that up in here, It's going to be Mandy Peters. Here's how I'm going to maintain consistency. If you know Format Painter, I'm going to pick up the paint and I'm going to format the painter right over here. This is good. And we're going to just comma that. And Eugene Lawrence was also received this email from this threat actor. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And it's okay because it's an email address. That's why it's blue here, and we're good. So while we're at it, let's go ahead and take a look at what is the IP of the user who clicked on the link from the email containing the domain invasion.xyz. Okay, so we're back here again. I'm going to once again give us a little bit of real estate here. So I'm going to close this out over here. And we see that Mandy did not, Eugene did. So Eugene is the one who did this. It's Eugene Lawrence. So let's go and find out a little bit about Eugene Lawrence while we're at it, because Eugene is in play. So we're going to get a new line here. I'm going to go into the Employees tab, and we're going to search. And I'm just going to make it real easy for me here. And it's Eugene. And let's see, what do we get? Eugene Lawrence. Okay, so this is our guy. We're going to do copy. Come back over here. What is the IP of the user? That's not the question that they asked here. The question is 192.168. This is Eugene Lawrence. Now, if I really want to be more specific so that way we don't have any clutter, I'm going to do an L on this part here, Eugene Lawrence. Okay, so we have Eugene Lawrence. We have the IP address. I'm going to copy that. Make sure we are answering the question. It says, what is the IP of the user who clicked on the link? It is Eugene Lawrence. We step aside over here. Let's go ahead and get that in there. And we're going to make that a dark green. Actually, I'm just going to take that from Format Painter and just format as we know this is our answer. Okay, what is the name of the user from this question? It is Eugene Lawrence. So Eugene is in play at this point, right? So we're not saying that he's a person of interest, not at all. We just know that this is actually Eugene is a person of interest. We see some activity that may be an indicator of compromise. So we're going to just take a deeper look into Eugene in a moment. Okay, so our question is, when did the user in 6 click on the link? Provide the exact timestamp. So let's go ahead and do that and see what that looks like. So when did the user in 6, Eugene Lawrence, click on the link? So for this part here, we're going to just take this timestamp. I'm going to copy it and say this is the timestamp. It's actually not, but just for illustration purposes, just bear with me. I'll explain this a little bit later. We're going to go ahead and paste that, and we will revisit the timestamp in a moment. Just park this here. This is going to be in the parking lot. And this is the timestamp that Eugene actually went in and clicked on the link. And we see that Eugene Lawrence went in here. This is the employee's email. Balloons, and this is actually incorrect because we know this is the problem. We want to go in the email tab, but we will revisit this. Okay, what is the host name of Eugene? So we're back here on this side here as well, and once again we need a little bit more real estate, so I'm going to collapse the user agent so we can get the host name, and the host name is Victor Romeo Delta Alpha dash machine. So we're going to copy that, come over on this side here, paste that as an answer. And that is the host name, and we're pretty certain about that, right? So this is great. Okay, how many total emails were sent by the email address in question number 1? So this email address, how many emails did it send in total? So good, let's go ahead and take a look at that. So we have this here. So we have, good, let's go ahead and do it right in here. So we have the sender. I have my take 4, it's remmed out. The sender is TETHYS at Pocket. We see where link has invasion X and we want to do a count. Let's go ahead and take a look at this here, and let's just run this piece of code here, and let's see how many. We see 2. So I'm not too happy with this here, so we're going to take a look at it from a slightly different perspective just to make sure we have this correct. So we'll deconstruct this here. We see the 2 emails and we're okay with this here. So how many total emails were sent by this user? So this time we were looking for this particular link in this area here. So we're going to keep this remmed out. We're going to search invasion. We don't want that. We see where sender equals TETHYS. We want to see what that looks like. So I'm going to uncomment that, or unrem it, if you will. And let's see what the shift enter is to run it. And let's see what my count looks like. I'm going to have to slide that over a recipient just so we don't have to move things along too much. And let's see what my count looks like. And I also want to get the count. Let's see what that looks like. And we have 9. So for total is 9. So where sender equals this user or this email address, we see the count. If I rem that out, let's run that again. We see the 9 email addresses here, and some people accepted, some didn't. So our answer is 9. I'm going to go ahead and accept the 9. We're going to uncomment that out so we can see that again, and 9 is the answer. I like that. Let's go ahead and say these were the total emails that were sent. Very good. Okay, now our next question is, what was the file name that was sent in the link in the email in question 1? And we know it was sent by TETHYS. So we'll go back to email here, and we want to just basically uncomment where sender is this user here. And we're just going to run and take a look at all of those. And we also know that they went to, so let's get a little bit more real estate. We know that this sender sent it also to Mandy and Eugene. So let's get a little bit of room here. So we saw that here. I think we answered that in question, this question here. Mandy and Eugene received an email from them. And in both cases here, we see that flight crew information.xls. That is the file that was copied. So I'm going to copy this over here. This is the file in the link. So to answer the question, what file name was sent in as a link in the email? It's this one here. So I'm going to post that in there. We're going to get rid of this, the invasion.y, and it's flight crew. That's the answer. And I just want to make sure that it's in proper format as we've had before. I'm going to just format it this way. And it says, did the user in 6, this must be Eugene Lawrence, download the file in the link before, yes or no? So how would we answer that? Let's do this a couple of ways. First and foremost, let's go to the file creations, and let's find out a little bit more about Eugene. So we need to know if Eugene and what's his host name. So we're going to search Eugene again. I select the employees, search Eugene. I'm going to hit run, and I'm looking for Eugene's host name. So it's a little slow here. This is the host name. So this is Eugene Lawrence's host name. It's his computer, but I also want to know what was created on it. So I say where host names equals this here will give me some machines. And also I'm looking to see where file name. Now I may forget what all of these options are. Here's another way we could take a look at this. I'm going to expand this, and I'm looking at the file creation events. I'm going to expand that, and it's file name. So I'm going to say where file name double equals, and it's going to be the flight crew information, right? So we're going to do the flight crew information. A little slow on my machine here for some odd reason. And let's go ahead and get this flight crew information.xls. I'm going to copy that, bring that over here, paste that from buffer. Get rid of this extra stuff here. Let's do a quick run and let's see what's happening. So we want to know where host name equals VRD and flight name, we get nothing. So I'm tempted to say no, but let's just see if anybody else have downloaded it. So we're going to take a look here, and okay, so we see all the machines, all the files that are on his machine. Let's go ahead and do this the opposite way, where we're going to isolate the host name. But this time we're going to see, did anybody create or download the file? And yes. So we know that others have, and we may come back to them at a later date. I'm going to collapse this. Looks like a couple of users have downloaded the file. And let's see here. This is the hash. We don't need the hash at the moment. And yes, so we have a couple of machines who have downloaded here, this laptop and this desktop. But to answer the specific question, did Eugene Lawrence actually download the machine and that file of Flight Crew XLS? The answer is no. So we'll go ahead over here and answer no for our housekeeping, and I think we are all set. So now we have to find out how many unique file names were sent by the email address in question 1. So the email address is this one here. It's the same email address we've been working on before. I'm going to copy that. We see we already have it here in the email. We want to see where sender. So I'm just going to go ahead and run this here. I'm going to make sure it's selected. It has it in blue. We click run. and we see we have a number of email addresses, a total of 9, and we had answered that before. But the question is specific. It says how many unique file names, and that usually means we need the distinct operator. So we're going to do a distinct, and link is the column that I'm trying to make sure we have only one of a kind here. I click on run, and I see 5 hits. And let's see if there's flight crew a couple of times. So we're going to just go with 4. We see XLS here, logs XLS, reports logs. Flight crew is the same, but they use a different one. I'm going to go with the answer of 4. We have 5 records here, and 2 of them are duplicates. So these are the distinct. We can go ahead and answer the question, which is how many unique file names? The answer is 4. Great. Now I go over here, do my format painter, make sure we have consistency with the coloring. Now, which domain did the email address use to target Richard Clements? Okay, Richard Clements. So in this case here, I'm going to go back up in this section here. I don't want the distinct links. I'm going to rem that out and see if there's an email to Richard Clements here. And Richard Clements, yes. And I see that Richard Clements was set up here. So we can isolate this if we wanted to, right? So we're going to say where sender is, and we're going to say where recipient double equals, and I should probably just copy this to make it really easy for me. I'm going to copy this, put that in here, open quote, paste from buffer, close quote, and let's run that command. And we see Richard Clements, what was happening here. And this is the particular question. So the question is what domain, and it's internetpassers.com. So I'm going to copy this here, and yeah, that'll work. I'll do the copy. I'll come and answer the question. So we know it was 4. What domain did the email address use to target? So this is where Richard went. He went to antennas-passers.com, and he downloaded this malicious file, and it had a destructive payload. So I'm going to go ahead and set that up. We just want to know the domain, so that way we can be in compliance with the questions and our report. And I'm just going to set this up over here. It doesn't have to be exact. You guys get the idea. Okay. It says, when did Richard Clements click on the link sent by the sender in 1? So we're going to assume that he did it at this time here. So I'm going to go ahead and close this out and give us a little bit of real estate by sliding this over. And we're going to say this is the time that it came in. Let's go ahead and make sure this is true, because going back to our other question here as a placeholder, again, this is more instructional purposes. So Richard downloaded this file, flight crew information.xls. So we need to know a little bit more about Richard again. So in this case here, I'm going to go back to search, and I'm just going to look for Richard in employees, because I need a couple of things about Richard. And in Richard, I'm looking for Richard Clements. Let's just now narrow the list. It's going to be Clements. This is good. We'll do this here, and I'm going to do a search, so I need to get that hit. And I want to get his host name here. And I got his host name. We see we have his IP address, so we have some information about him. And let's take a better look at this question again one more time. It says, when did Richard click on the link sent by the sender? Okay, so we want to see basically when did he create this file XLS. So I'm going to swap out this host name here and put it into Richard's, and I can go ahead and do a paste. I could put a comment here and say this is Richard Clements' host name if we want to keep everything nice and clean. Clements host name. This is good. This will not run. This is non-executable. This is just commenting the code, and we're file name. Let's see what happens here. And we don't have anything for him here. So search. We're going to get rid of this in file creations. Make sure we don't have any extra code in here. And voila, this is what we're looking for. So Richard, host name, downloaded the file. He created in the file creations, and this is the timestamp on March 4th, 2023 at 7:50 a.m. is the time that he downloaded the file. We'll go ahead and we'll set that up in here. I'm going to paste the answer, copy this into buffer, and we have 2 things. So we see when did Richard Clements download the file. So this is the more particular. This is the better answer, I should say. And then the other answer is when he actually clicked on the file. So this is the downloaded file because we see this on the file creation. So let me get the answers correct here so you can have that for your purposes. And when did Richard click on the link? So this is the file set up here. And in this case here, this is when he actually, and I want to compare and contrast at 7:44. So he clicked on the link, but then downloaded the file. So we're going to copy this and we put that over here. And I'm going to say edit and paste without formatting. That's fine. And we have the two different times. Click the link, download the link. Now, what was the name of the file that Richard downloaded after clicking on the link? So this is an interesting question. What was the name of the file that Richard Clements downloaded after clicking on the link? And once again, it's the file .xls file here. So let's just make sure that's true. And yes, we see that here when we come back to this part in the file creations. We did run, and that's the name of the file. Let's copy this here. We see it was created. And we can go ahead and paste that in, format it as our answer key so that way you can have that if you go back and have to cross-check or take a look at the alien section in KC7. Okay, what file was observed on Richard Clement's machine immediately after he downloaded the file in question 16? So he downloaded the flight crew information XLS at 7:50 on his laptop. So we want to take a look at all the other aspects here. So just so I have a timestamp here, I'm going to do copy. I'm going to come up here and I'm just going to write a little note to myself. I'm just going to put this timestamp here, and I don't need to put anything else in here. This is when Richard downloaded the file in question. Okay, I'm okay with that. So file creation, this is still Richard's laptop, flight crew. So now I don't want just the specific information. I want to see all of the files. So I'm going to comment that out. I hit run, and the time that we're looking for is March 4th. So let's scroll down to March 4th. Yes, there is an elegant way to do before, after date ranges, but for now we're going to keep things pretty simple. And at 7:50, and I can do an exact time here. At 7:50 is when he downloaded the flight crew, and the question asked us what file did he download immediately after downloading the file.connection. Let's make sure we have the right question here, and we see this year good. This file was downloaded almost immediately after, a couple of seconds, about 20 seconds later or so. Yeargood.exe. So this is the file that Richard downloaded immediately after filing or downloading the flight crew. So we'll go over here, we'll set that up, and let's go ahead and set that information in. We're going to do our typical format painter so we can create our answer key. Looks like we're still pretty good here. And it says, what was the SHA-256 hash of the file in 17? So let's go ahead in 17 and let's take a look at yeargood. So we have the hash. We're going to set that part over here. We're back at 7:50. And this is the hash. As we remember, hash is a cryptographic algorithm that gives you a unique digital fingerprint of files. This is the hash here. We're going to copy that hash and answer that in the question as we build our report. So we're going to hit enter. I'm going to paste. And this is our hash. I'm going to make sure this is properly formatted. Now it says the hash in this question here can be found in Virustotal.com. It says Virustotal is a malware repository used by many security researchers. What is the reported name of this file on Virustotal? So we're going to first make sure we have that copied to buffer. We're going to come over here and go to Virustotal. And let's just do this this way here. So we'll go to Virustotal. And I'll set it up this way here, just to make things real easy. So we're at Virustotal. I'm going to peel it off and give us a little bit more real estate by sending it over here. And it says we can analyze suspicious files, domains, IPs, URLs, and detect malware. We can do a number of things here. We can search, and we can put a variety of different types of assets in here, URLs. This is a common website that we use, particularly at the service desk when we get calls. Is it safe? Is the URL safe? Is the file safe? Is the IP address safe? In this case here, we're going to put the hash that we developed from our ADX database here in the file creation database. We're going to hit enter and see what happens. And sure enough, this looks like 41 security vendors and no sandbags flags this file as malicious. So security vendors, 41 out of 64 says that this is a malicious file and it has a different name that it goes under. This is why we hash, so that way even if somebody renames a file, you can still tell if it's malicious or if it's malware by running it into Virustotal and getting its true name. So we see here the hash. What is the reported name of this file on Virustotal? This is the reported name right here. So we're going to copy that. I can get a text version of this too to make things a little bit easier. I'm looking at the free version on this laptop and that's okay. I'm going to edit paste, and this is my answer here. Okay, so I'm going to make sure that this is properly formatted. And we have this. How many positive detections did the hash in 18 receive on VT? In this case here, this is Virustotal. I'm going to go back. In this case here, we have 41. Now, depending on what you're doing when you're doing this here for KC7, maybe there will be more positive detections. If you're looking for the exact answer, you can go into the Discord. At the last time I did this, it was 35. However, 41 out of 64 vendors flagged this as malicious. So I'm going to put 41 in this portion here. Okay, it says now, how many processes were spawned on Richard Clement's machine by the file in 18? So we're looking at year good at this point. So we're going to go back to ADX, and we're looking at year good, and we see the path. And at this point, we want to come into give us some real estate. Let's bring this all the way up here. And year good was at about 750. So this is on March 4th is where we think a lot of the things happened. And we're looking at the year good file. So I'm going to copy the year good file. And we just want to take a look at the process events. There's a lot going on here in this table. There's process events. Let's see what are some of our options here. We have process name, we have host name, we have a number of different types of machines. So let's go ahead and just do a take 5 on process events and see what our options are, so that way we can query the database a little bit better, or query the table a little bit better. So we're going to do take 5. And we see a bunch of process names, and we see parent process name. Okay, let's see what happens here. So we're going to say where parent process name is what we're looking for. So let's go ahead and copy this. I know I had the copy column name. I'm going to put that into buffer, and it's going to equal the yeargood.exe. Open quote, yeargood.exe. I close this out. Now I need to rem this, and this is why I say sometimes commenting these are good and bad. This is always just how you use it. And I'm going to run, and let's see what is our problem here. We want to make sure it's a direct match. And why are we running into problems here? Let's take a look. Process events. It helps to have the right syntax. So we have a number. We see the parent process name here, and we see quite a bit. So what is our question? It says how many processes were spawned on Richard Clement machine. So these are all of the processes that were run, but now we want them particularly on Richard Clement's machine. We also want to know where the host name is Richard's machine. So we see the host name. So we're going to copy this right here. And just to make sure we have the process name on year good, we want to make sure we have Richard Clement's host name. We take this option. I'm going to copy it, bring it back into the process events table, hit enter, and we have 2. Let's see. So the number is 2. 2 processes will run the command line and run DLL32. So let's come over here and answer our question. Okay, so good. So the answer here is 2. I'm going to highlight this, format, get this answer done, this one done as well, and 2. And we're going to answer another question while we're here. It says the file in 18 established a remote connections from Richard Clement's machine to an external IP over port 443. What was the IP address? So let's go ahead and give us some more room. We collapse the connection pane. We bring the parent hash over. we open this up a little bit and we see this run DLL process command line, and we see port 443. And port 443, as many of you know, is an HTTP port, HTTPS to be specific. Port 80 is HTTP, and we're looking at run DL, and this is the IP address. We're going to copy this here, and it's this particular IP address that we're looking for, and then we'll go ahead and put that in. Okay, shortly after the malware run, the attackers came back to Richard's machine to enumerate enterprise admins. What command did they run? So once again, we're going to take a look at the timestamp here, and there's a lot going on, and we see on March 3rd, this is where a lot of the things happened here. So we've got the information that we needed. We're going to go back on his machine here, and we're going to, let's just go ahead and just run the process events once again. And this was looking particularly for the year good file. So we're going to comment this out. And then we're going to just run the command. And we see a bunch of processes, and we want to come in at about 7:50 on March 4th, right? So we'll come up here to give us some room again. We'll scroll down. So we have a lot of filtering here. So let's go back and just rem this out part as well too, so we can get a better timestamp. So we're looking at the year good. We do a run here. And we see it's March 4th and it's at 8:32. So the question asked us here, shortly after the malware ran, this is either year good, the attackers came back to Richard's machine to enumerate enterprise admins. What command did they run? So in this case here, we're just going to take a look at all of it, right? We want to see all of Richard's activities. We know that we're on his laptop. We know from year good is where things started acting up. This is still on March 4th, 8 o'clock. And then we go ahead and rem that, run it, and let's go ahead and take a look. And we see all of the activities here. So March 4th, the year good ran, there's a command line, and there's a whole host of issues here. And this is where we can scroll up, give us a little bit more room here, and give us some more command lines as well. And these are the lines that were actually run. And we can do this a variety of ways, but we could just basically start eyeballing and seeing how they actually came in after they ran. They have remote capabilities, and now they're looking at a number of different activities here. And if we scroll down, we can just start looking to see all of the different things that they've done. So in this case here, we're looking at these users here. If it gets too complicated, we can always use the search command. And we're going to say process events, and I'm just going to search. Let's just go ahead and do a search on enterprise admins. And on search enterprise admins, I see this is the command that they used, and they did this on March 1st at about 9 o'clock 36. Command line C group net group domain enterprise admins. And that, go ahead, I'm going to copy this. And in this case here, we went back. This is the command that they ran. We'll go ahead and highlight that, put that in green. Let me just make sure we do that the opposite way. And we are good. So our next question is, what commands did the attackers run to dump credentials on Richard's machine? So we know Richard's machine is this host name, the Hotel November Oscar Alpha laptop. And we have the year good process. We have this isolated because we were searching for enterprise. Let's go ahead and isolate by commenting out the enterprise and just run the whole command here. And I think the time that we were more concerned of, we had the time up here, was March 4th at about 8:32. This is when the run DLL really took off. If we're not too sure about it, let's uncomment the year good process. And this is when they established the remote connection. So this time jives with this time here, and we see the run DLL 32 is where they created the remote connection to port 443 on their remote host. This is not Richard Clements' laptop. Okay, so we know this is the time that we're looking for. So we're going to go ahead and isolate the year good file and get back into this whole process here. And we want to get basically to about March 4th or so at 8:30. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're nearing down to about March 4th, as we mentioned, 8:32. I'm going to put that on the top here, give this a little bit more room. So let's get this here. So this is the time we're looking for. We saw this is where they actually had the remote execution or the remote code connection. And we see a number of processes here that are running and a number of command lines that are actually being processed here. So we're asked to find out exactly what commands did the attackers run to dump credentials on Richard's machine. And we're not entirely sure, but we know that they ran commands. So I think we can isolate this by the command prompt, right? The CMD file. So we only want to see where CMD, where process name equals CMD. So I'm going to make this easy here. Let's go on this top here. We're going to put the pipe command. We're going to say where process name, back that out. Where process name double equals, and we want CMD. And we're going to look like only things that were actually typed in the command prompts. Okay, so now this gives us a list of activities. We see the process name. Let's bring that over a little closer. And this is about where things were in play, where all of the commands that were run on this computer at the command prompt. Now we're assuming that these were not run by Richard and they were going to the remote host. We can verify that a little bit later, but let's go ahead and take a look and walk down this series of commands. So they did an NS lookup, a name server lookup to Google. We see they opened up Explorer. They did a domain controller list. They're going through a whole number of activities here. We saw the enterprise admin, and it just so happens that I know what Mimikatz is. And again, it's not so much that it just so happens. We're in the cybersecurity field, and if you have taken the Security Plus, you know that Mimikatz is actually an open source password credential dumping tool. Let's go to Bing and take a look at that. So I went to Bing, I went and put in Mimikatz, and it says over here, one of the Bing search results, it says Mimikatz is a popular post-exploitation tool that is commonly used in pen testing and hacking, developed by these folks, and it's also known as a tool that will basically steal Kerberos tickets from memory. So this is the tool that we're looking at. If we come back here, Mimikatz was the tool that was used. I'm going to copy that, come over on this side and answer our questions. What commands did the attackers use to run the machine? Let's go ahead and hit enter, put the information in that we want. It's only Mimikatz. Circular is also another one as well, but right now we're just going to go with Mimikatz. And we'll close this off, and I'm going to do the proper formatting that we have done before, just so we can properly answer this question and create an answer key. It also says the attackers enumerated the contents of this folder on Richard's machine and dumped it to a text file. So if you look at this, because we isolated by the command prompt, we see that they had a double greater than sign that went to mylist.txt. So this is classic redirection, which is over here. It looks like they ran the command. They're looking at a full C drive here. They're looking at the share of the balloon secrets folder. And this is the folder that they were looking at. So we're going to go ahead and just copy that as well. I don't want to copy with the headers. So it looks like they took this to a file, and it wants us to know the folder name. So this is what our supervisors are looking for. They want to know what the folder is. Again, they're creating this a report. This is our first day on the job as a junior cybersecurity analyst, and we're just going through a list of questions that were handed to us, and we want to make sure that we answer them properly. So we go to balloon secrets over here. I'm going to just take the format painter and highlight that as well. So great. Now, it says how many machines have similar commands connecting to C2 command and control channels that are observed in question 22. So in question 22, this question here, we see that port 443 was exposed in the process command line here. So I can get rid of some of these lines here, and let's see what we can find in the process command line. So if we go to process command line, this is, we were isolating on the comment. So let's comment this out. Just for fun, because we know it was there, we're going to, this is Richard's machine. We're going to look at everybody at other machines. We're going to say process command line double equals, or actually it's just going to has port 443. And let's see what we have. I'm expecting to see the run DLL. And at this point here, I'm going to actually rem out or comment out Richard Clements' machine, so we can see other machines that have this as well. We see quite a bit of them, and it says how many computers. The question is how many machines have similar connecting to C2. So we see we have quite a bit. We want to take a look at similar machines to make sure that it's unique. So I'm going to reduce the process hash, and I want distinct host names here just to make sure. So we're always looking for distinct values here. And by distinct is we're going to remove the duplicates. Get a colon here, distinct host name. And we see 36 records pointing over here. I'm just going to get a count so we can do this programmatically. We do a count. And just for purposes here, we see 36. And that is the answer we're going with. How many machines have similar commands connecting to the CT command and control? And we're going to go with 36. So I'll put 36 in and do the traditional formatting so that way we can continue building up our answer key. And that is the answer to the question. So our next question is, how many unique implants were used to establish these C2 connections, these command and control connections? So for this one here, we kind of have to slightly define implants. So let's go back to where our process command line has 443. We had distinct host name because we were doing a count here. And let's just rem these two out so we can see all the different options that we have here. So we see that we have this parent process, year good, and we have the run dl32.exe. Now what happened here is this was the decoy. This was the red herring or the gotcha file. Year good, this is balloons over Iowa. So this looks like something that would be similar or a friendly file, an executable like year good, blimp, and helium. So when you double click this, it would implant a run DLL32, and this is what actually created the remote connection. So this is the implant. So we have the parent process, and then the process command line. What it did when you created and double clicked it, it actually created this executable that allowed the hackers to have a remote connection through through HTTP port 443. Now, there's a number of these here, and in the last question, we said there were 36 unique values here, where we had the distinct host names, and we looked at it. In this case here, we want to see how many of these have a unique process hash, parent process hash, so we can get a sense of how many unique implants are in there. So we'll come here, we'll go ahead and do this here. We'll do a parent. We're actually distinct parent process, right? We'll do distinct parent, and we see that we have these numbers here. We'll come back down over here and unrem our count feature so we can get official count, and there we have a value of 11. So for this question here, how many unique implants? There were 11 unique implants for this particular one here. And I realize that some of this is getting deep into our lecture series, but that's how it works sometimes with cybersecurity. Some things you know you have at your fingertips. Some things you have to go ahead and do this immediately. In other words, you have to do a little bit of research, I should say. Now, the other question is, one of these C2 connections was observed on hostname Oscar Kilo Yankee Uniform Desktop. When did this occur? So we want the time on this here. So I'm going to rem out the count. And we'll just go ahead and do this. We'll also rem out the distinct process hash. And we're looking for a particular host name. So let's see, where are we on the host name? So I'm going to close this guy out a little bit. Bring the host name column all the way over here so we can see this a little bit better. And the host name we're looking for is the Oscar. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this because we want to just get this one specifically, and we're going to say where hostname equals that value. So now we have where hostname double equals the desktop, the value. We run it, we see this timestamp here, and that gives us the timestamp that we're looking for. So we're going to copy this here so we can answer the question. One of these C2 connections was observed on hostname. When did this occur? Well, this C2 connection, command and control, happened at that time. So we go ahead, we paste that, we highlight it so that way we have our answer key, and this is just great practice for us here. It also says on hostname, same hostname that we were working on, the attackers ran this command to delete the data backups. So we'll go back to our process. Let's see if we have any of them here. If not, we'll just go ahead and create it. Process events. Yeah, this is fine. So we have our process events. And we have our desktop here. So this time here, I'm going to rem out so we can see all the process events that will run on the desktop here. And we see the command. This looks pretty good. We're going to sort by time so we can kind of walk through and see what was happening. So on April 4th, I should say, March 4th, 2023, 8:26. This is when they started running through their commands. They went through the domains, the list of domain admins. They have the remote execution here using the Helium parent file to be the decoy. They run through here a number of commands, and as we continue to work down this series of commands, we see that they were able to delete shadow files, and they also over here they deleted the shadow files. So essentially what they wanted to do is take a look at all of the shadow files. These are those like little squiggly lines that you see, or those remnant files when you're working with different type of files like Word. And now it just went ahead and it deleted all of them. So either of these commands could work. I'm going to take the shadow delete command as the answer. I like to offer options and say they ran both of these if we were going to truly send a report. I put in my copy here, my answer, and I go ahead and highlight this. Okay, excellent. And then last but not least, we're at our last question. It is likely that the observed actor, the one responsible for the activity seen in the previous question, conducted this type of destructive attack. So for starters, it's a denial of service attack. Anytime I hear destruction, it's a denial of service attack because they're trying to deny us the service. But this also looks like the forerunner to a ransomware attack as well, which is they delete the backups and then they're going to ask us, meaning we're the victims here, the threat actors are going to basically say, if you want your data, because they have copied it in previous commands here, if you want your data, you'll have to pay a ransom, and then we will release the content. But that said, we have completed all of the questions. I'm going to leave the answer keys here. I'll complete them this way so you can have them on file. We're going to just say ransomware for this one here. We'll highlight it here just so we can complete the video. Our next lesson, we're going to complete section 3, top secret. So please be sure to go to the top secret version of KC7. I'll bring that up over here so you can take a look at it as it redirects us. And then I will create a solutions video for that as well. But in the meantime, you need to go through the KC7 top secret, run through this here, and we'll have a solutions video for you at the next episode. Until then, happy hunting.